on Public Works and Transportation. Pursuant to the open meeting law, any person may make an audio or video recording of this public meeting or may transmit the meeting through any medium. Attendees are therefore advised that such recordings or transmissions are being made whether perceived or unperceived by those present and are deemed acknowledged and permissible. May we please call the roll?
Councilor Stephen Kamara.
Here.
Councilor Joseph Kamara.
Here.
Chairman Tavares.
Here. First item on the agenda is citizens' input. Do we have anybody signed up? Or anybody that would like to come down and speak? Yeah. Yep. Please come down.
Is that Mr. Kaplan? He would also be invited down during the discussion of the roof.
Where do I sit?
Any place you want to sit, Mr. Kaplan. There's a microphone in either location.
Just please state your name and address for the record.
Yes, my name is Ron Kaplan. I live at 295 Albany Street in Fall River. And I'm here as chairman of the Board of Trustees at the library. And I have to tell you that this is an absolute travesty, that this roof has not been fixed. It has been patched so many times. It is a very old roof. The library is deteriorating. The people in the library are making fun of it. It is every day that goes by that this is not fixed is absolutely horrible. And I cannot believe that we are lingering along so much time that this has not been taken care of. And I plead with you to do this immediately, not waste another minute and not patch it one more time, because if you patch it in another month or another 2 months, you're going to have the same thing all over again, either there or somewhere else. Thank you.
Is there anyone else? Not seeing anyone. Next item on the agenda is emergency street opening request from city engineer for pavements less than 5 years old on Purchase Street. Mr. Fry?
Hello, Council.
Could you give us an update on this?
Well, there were a couple different pieces to it. First of all, Verizon came in and executed a repair on their system. I've received conflicting information from them as to what exactly necessitated the repair, so that wasn't particularly clear up front. But what they did agree to do was a mill and overlay from curb to curb beyond the limits of their work, and they did successfully complete that. After they had done that, National Grid had to go in and make a power repair. One of their conduit had been broken during construction, and water got into the conduit and shorted out the circuit. So they had to go in and make a repair along the curb line that served one of the houses. And so they went in and made their repair. All of that was within the mill and overlay area that Verizon had completed. And as things stand, I believe we still need to have National Grid come back to do infrared over their patch within the mill and overlay area.
Are we satisfied with the patch job?
I know Steve Kamara is not particularly happy because the way that the mill and overlay was completed, it leaves there's a little bit of a transition bump. It's not huge, but it's there. It's not non-existent either. So from an engineering perspective, we've repaired the road to such a state that we've eliminated the issues that we would normally have with seams from water getting into the subgrade of the road. But in terms of the aesthetic or the road surface condition, I'll let Steve speak to that, as he's, you know, he's on that street more than I am. And, you know, if he has a particular issue with it, we can talk about addressing it further if it needs to be. In terms of a mill and overlay finish, that is pretty typical of what we would see in construction work. So it isn't outside the scope of what we would normally see. The entire situation was unfortunate in that we had weeks before paved the street, and it's a high-profile project, and when you want everything to go right, that's its own frustration. But they were in the street doing their work before, because they treated it as an emergency repair. They were in the street before we had an opportunity to do any more investigation.
Is that typical practice, that it happens that quickly before we have a say in what's happening to our?
For emergency repairs, yes. And I guess that could also go to a separate question. Is the Verizon, I could see where the National Grid is an emergency repair, in that you're talking about power to houses, especially in the middle of winter. Is a communications line, was there a significant enough outage that it resulted in that repair, or was there something else that was prompting that repair, where it could have been addressed separately outside of the emergency process? And that I'm not sure of.
Counselor, do you want to?
Well, just a few things. You're right, this is a high-profile project. It is the first completed streetscape project. And actually, the opening occurred 4 days after the street construction was completed. So, and it was a significant cut. And I understand from my communication with people on site at that time, and it was a freezing cold, may have even been New Year's Eve weekend, Christmas week. It was a high weekend, holiday weekend, and I was told that it took quite a few days for them to actually determine what the problem was, and the problem was determined to be a internet outage for businesses quite a distance away, businesses on Pleasant Street in the vicinity of the Durfee Union Mill and GM Refrigeration Company neighborhood, basically that area. So they lost internet, and they tracked the break to be on Purchase Street. So I understand emergencies, they happen. You can't stop them from happening, and you have to get in there and repair them. But after waiting for as it's described, for there to be it is an item 7, the surface shall be compacted using a steel drum roller, resulting in a smooth, tight pavement surface, which matches the grade of the existing pavement. I would ask my colleagues, if they haven't driven down that street, to determine whether they feel it's a smooth, tight pavement. It's not. There are 2 bumps. There's a bump initially in the south end of the construction, and then there's an additional bump going down to the original pavement. So it doesn't seem to me that the project was repaved properly. And although we didn't have a very harsh winter, I would expect that with a harsh winter and with plows pushing the snow and getting down to the asphalt, that connection between the original asphalt and the patch that was done is going to be compromised. And you mentioned it's not allowing leakage of water to go down into the, but I think it will, based upon the quality of the work that was done and the fact that I do think that in time, and there's a lot of traffic that comes onto that block because both Pine Street East and Pine Street West turn onto Purchase Street at that block. So everyone that's heading north on Main Street or even south on Rock Street end up, if they take that turn onto Pine Street, they inevitably have to come onto that block on Purchase before getting to Cherry, where they then have the option of going either east or west. So I don't know if it can be redone. I know there's a lot of work yet to be done in that area. The Pine Street block between Rock and Purchase, there was an initial pavement that was put down, but there needs to be now the final coat of pavement. On the block between North Main and Purchase Street, that street is deteriorating rapidly. I remember when Ken Pacheco was on board, he informed me that that street was scheduled for reconstruction. It hasn't been done yet since those days when he in fact, was one day had his crew putting paint on the street indicating where the work was going to be done. That street's become extremely busy too because it's the primary entrance to the YMCA. So all the buses are turning onto that. So, I think frankly, Pine Street, east and west to Purchase, and then Purchase Street north to Cherry, should all be looked at again with the idea of possibly redoing it so that it all comes out smoothly. Because right now, there's a lot of bumps, and I don't want to go into more detail because it's not on our agenda, but even Rock Street, where it crosses Bank, there are bumps, and I don't know if that's unfinished as well. It just seems like the quality of work is not what I think should be the quality of work on the job that's being done. So I'm not sure where we go with this, if we want to possibly get Verizon to come back and have you communicate with
Well,
Verizon as to whether or not they want to redo it.
We can
That's something to be considered.
We have the authority, I have the authority to simply direct them to come back and make specific reparative measures. For instance, one of the things that, and I'm just thinking out loud here, but one of the things that we could do is come back and mill down the seam on each end and repave just the seam side, but have them pay more attention to the compaction to get more of a smoother surface than what you're currently experiencing in terms of that transition because that's approaching the highest part of Purchase before it comes back down. So on both sides, they might come back with a small machine and just mill along both seams so that they could repave it, recompact it, and provide a smoother finish in that manner.
I yield.
So is that street 100% complete or not? I don't understand. The question was very simple. Is the work done
Joe, you
properly?
might turn on your mic.
The question, as I understood it, was very simple. Is the work done 100% completed, and is it done properly?
The from an engineering perspective, the work that Verizon did was completed and done properly.
What's the transition between the seams? Half inch, quarter of an inch?
It's more of a grade transition,
What's the
so
transition between the grades?
it's if I was judging, it's a couple percent. So that's the bump that he's feeling is your.
What's that equivalent to, a quarter of an inch?
Well, it's more like if you're coming up the street at 1% and then it's transitioning more quickly than usual to a, say, 2.5% or 3% grade to go up and get over the hill. It's basically that they almost mounded it a little bit when they left the asphalt in, as opposed to having more of a smoother
Who did the work?
finish. I don't know who Verizon's subcontractor was.
Okay, maybe we should have them go back and fix it,
Okay.
because that's not acceptable. My counselor's right, there's no need to be any transition. All right,
Understood?
thank you. With that, I go, simple enough.
I don't know if this, in your communication to us, it says was executed by Joseph Body Company. Is that the company that did the work?
They did the underground work, but
The
it wouldn't
underground work.
necessarily
Not
correspond to
necessarily
who did the asphalt. Also, this is not this exact issue, but the issue of entry into five-year streets is also going to be addressed at the ordinance subcommittee meeting on Wednesday. So that, if there are other issues that you'd like to bring forward, that would be another opportunity.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.
So I'll move that we table this until we see what Mr. Fry is able to get done.
So motion to table, is there a second?
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next item on the agenda, Mayor and order appropriating $375,050 from CPA funds for historic resources preservation projects. Anyone here from the library or CPA administration? Invite you to come down. If you wouldn't mind just going around the table and stating your name and address, please.
Leanne Verbo, Library Administrator, 56 Bullfrog Lane, Tiverton, Rhode Island.
Mary Sahadi, City Director of Financial Services.
Jim Souza, Chairman of CPA Committee.
Tony Dias, Vice Chair of the CPA Committee.
Ron Kaplan, Chairman of the Board of Trustees at the library.
Thank you. Does Mr. Gallagher want to come down? I would invite him down as well.
Chris Gallagher, Director of Facilities.
Thanks. Mr. Hadi, do you want to kind of give us a background on this and
Sure. Just squeeze over here a little bit. So what you have in front of
How about if we take that mic, put it here, use that mic.
Okay, we all set now? No, it's not on. And it's on. Okay, so what you have in front of you that's been referred to this committee is the appropriation order for $375,050 to repair the roof at the library, as well as some interior work that was added to the request to the CPC. The request went over as an emergency request as a result of the library roof leaking. The library roof, at this particular point, the leaking of that roof has gotten significantly worse than it was when the Community Compact initially addressed the library roof as part of our ongoing or upcoming capital projects. So if you were to look back in some of the documents that you've received earlier from us, you received a Community Compact back at the end of, I believe it was 2017, it may have been into 18. And then, of course, you received from us the capital improvement plan just recently. Both actually address the library roof, but not in a timely manner, in the sense that when the library roof was originally assessed, when the Community Compact was put together, it was not given the priority that it currently needs. It was given a priority, but it was further down on the list, and therefore, by being further down on the list, it was a project that was going to be included in our debt service, but not until sometime in the later years. So if you looked at your capital plan that you just received, it wasn't going to be addressed to be repaired or replaced, and actually replaced, until 2021. And so as a result of the much-needed repair on that roof and the ongoing leaking that hasn't been able to be repaired, Mr. Gallagher has spent $7,000 or $8,000 repairing parts of that roof over the last 6 or 8 months, maybe even a little bit more than that, and to no avail. So the roof is still leaking. You can see from some of the pictures that have been presented to you that the interior of the library is continuing to leak as well. So the city approached the CPC and asked for an emergency appropriation, which they provided us. So they voted it and they provided us. It then came to the council for, to be affirmed, to be appropriated, and it got referred back to this committee, and this is where we are today. It would be certainly my recommendation as part of the administration that it come out of this committee with a recommendation to accept the appropriation order from the CPC and get this roof repaired.
Thank you. Before I go to Councilor Joseph Kamara, you sort of answered one of my questions, was why is CPA paying? Why isn't this something that the city is taking care of? And I guess what creates the priority? I mean, this is a roof that obviously needs a lot of attention, and to put this off till 2021, how does it?
So the
get put up on
priority was set, the priority list, if you will, and that's in the community compact. You'll see that there are numbers off to the left that were created with Mr. Pacheco and Mr. Gallagher, together with the individuals from the University of Mass, that put together the community compact in the first place. So they reviewed all the projects, and they reviewed all of the needs of those projects at that particular time. So just so happens that at that time, the library roof probably wasn't leaking the way it's leaking today, and so it didn't receive a priority toward the top of the list, where Tansy School windows, as you know, that you've just recently approved that bond issue, that was further up on the list. So some of the items, if you go back to that list and you look at the report that they presented, off on the left-hand column is the list of the priorities and the order that they put them in. Then what they did, together with myself and others, is we looked at what our debt service should be on an annual basis. So on an annual basis, we like our debt service to be around $10 million. So we looked at each one of those projects and the potential cost for those projects and determined what we could add in a given year to keep us at that $10 million dollar amount in the budget, knowing that other projects are being paid off during the same period of time that we're talking about. So that's why you see more projects in a given year, and then less projects that's not even over the 5-year plan, is because we look at the projects that are coming off the debt service and add to the debt service these new costs.
Thank you. Councilor Joseph Kamara.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Gallagher, what type of repairs have you done in the last 8 months in that roof?
We've done several between Jeff Cabral from the school department that was suggested by council and by yourself. Also Shea Roofing went out there and done several patches of flashing of the seams, things of that nature that we've done to that roof. Just recently, we went up and you had gone up with Mr. Cabral and found that the roof drain, the backside of the roof drain was corroded and was leaking. Some of the other inspections that we've done hadn't found some of those areas. So what we've done is, there was a gentleman that contacted me to put a new roof drain in. At the time, it was all snow and all of that stuff. And since then, he hadn't contacted back, so what we did is we sleeved it. We put a sleeve inside the roof drain so as to get past the area of the pipe that was slightly rotted. If we're gonna replace the roof, we're gonna put all new roof drains in. So we've gotten past that point, but we're still having the leaks from the flashing and the patching and in that. As you well know, the roof is 33 years old. It's past its point of life expectancy for an EPDM roof. So we're looking to replace the roof at this point in time. But we've done several things that we've done up there, from large amounts of patching on all the corners and flashings, things of that nature, because the main rubber, as you know, you go up there, it actually looks in fairly good condition. It's a lot of the seams, it's a lot of the flashings, it's a lot of
Only,
joints.
the only area I saw was near the two drains that needed attention. That's it. Someone had used caulk up there that they weren't supposed to use the right caulking. So $8,000 worth of, who you gave who $8,000?
No, it was, like I said, Jeff Cabral did some work up there.
He didn't charge you $8,000 for it.
No,
either.
it was like 7,000, the other, 700.
It's a
We
big
had
difference.
Shay's Roofing that went up there, there was 500 and some odd dollars that they've done. They went back there and we had some large areas.
Okay, so you didn't spend $8,000
$7,945.29.
on the roof.
On that roof, yes. Over since from last year to today.
Okay. All right. I didn't, I wasn't aware of that. I didn't see it, but no big deal. So what, other than putting the sleeve in the drain, did it fix the problem or not?
No, it's still leaking in that water still area. The drain part of it we fixed because the drain part, that was leaking water, but there's still coming down from this steel I-beam. You've been in that,
Yeah.
there's that steel I-beam and the areas where the I-beam meets.
So
the
what
wall.
are we gonna do? What are you gonna do to fix that, stop that?
Before I get into spending any more money, if we're going to replace the roof would be great, and if not, then I'd have to go up there and probably do a lot more of the patching on the seams and sealing of the seams.
How
because,
soon are you gonna replace that roof if the council okays it?
I have an architect, I'll put it out right away. I could probably put it out there within a month to put it out there to get it done right away.
So the roof will be fixed in a month?
I'm hoping that I could get it within 2 months. You know, it's gonna take a little bit for the architect to design it and get the bid docs, but then
And what's the cost to do it?
with the cost estimated that we had, the estimated done that the council had asked for estimations was $345,000, but I was asked to include some of the damages that were inside the building to the ceilings and stuff, so that we get it all done all at once was $375,000 is what we asked.
Did you meet the estimator on the job site when you did this estimation?
Yes. He was the RDA estimators. It was a design and architectural firm that went out there and they are the same ones who did the estimation for the Durfee High School.
All right, what did I yield?
Counsel?
Well, I believe the sentiment of the council was that they didn't see this as the most appropriate use of CPA funds, and that CPA funds ought to be used for other than what is just, in this case, maintenance. And I believe there was a resolution that the council adopted, and I believe it was a unanimous vote of the council seeking other sources of funding. So, where did that go? After it went to the council, to the mayor, was there any movement towards considering alternative funding in order to get this job done?
Well,
And let me just preface my remarks, because I know that one of the great admonitions of this administration has been that when the administration began, we had less than $1 million of stabilization funds, and now we're approaching $10 million in stabilization funds. It seems to me that this is an appropriate project to use some of that money. In essence, as I understand it, that's sort of a rainy day account, and this is a rainy day issue. So why can't we use city tax money that is in the reserve fund for the repair of this project, rather than tapping the CPA?
Well, first, Counselor, we're not nearly at $10 million. Right now, I believe the balance is $7 million and change. I don't know the exact amount, and I could certainly get that for you. But one of the reasons, or the main reasons, not wanting to go to stabilization whenever possible is that in order for us to build our bond rating, in order for us to be able to bond at a lesser expense, in order for us to have the proper reserves, the GFOA, the Governmental Finance Office, as well as the state, look at communities to have somewhere between 7 and 10% of their operating budget in reserves. And so our $7 million is nowhere near our 7 to 10%. In addition, we have the other post-employment benefit liability that's $500 million that we need to fund. So if we were to have some additional monies that we believe were extra rainy day, it would be more appropriate, from my point of view, to, one, include it in the reserve until we meet the percentage points that are recommended by the state and by other organizations, and in addition to that, be able to reduce our bonding rate whenever possible. So I wouldn't necessarily recommend going to the stabilization fund. I'm not a big fan of going to the stabilization fund, particularly if we don't have the reserves that are truly necessary. And $7 million, as you know, goes pretty quick if something really catastrophic happens. In addition to that, I mean, you look at the CPC, and that is taxpayer money. We are, as taxpayers, creating that fund. And that fund does support private projects as well as supporting public projects. The fund right now has $700,000 of unreserved monies in it. I think it's $750 and change. There's an anticipation that it'll have another $1 million come 19 into the 20 budget. And so we feel it's appropriate to use some of that funding, which is taxpayer money, to finish or to repair a roof on a historical city building.
Well, I appreciate that, and I realize that, and I actually had a bit of a heated conversation with Preservation CPC members about tax money being invested. That CPC money is tax money. It's not their money. It's our money. All of it's taxpayer money, whether it comes from stabilization fund or if it comes from CPC. It's taxpayer money. It's Fall River money. It doesn't come from someplace else. There may be a match that the state provides to some extent to the money that is collected through the CPC, but it's all city taxpayer money. So I concur with that. But I also do find it a little bit disconcerting to say that that this is not, and I know you're not saying this, Mr. Hardy, that this is not an emergency, but this is clearly an emergency. This is what I understand stabilization funds are for, a rainy day fund for emergencies. This is an emergency. The rain is falling on one of our most prized possessions, and it's going into the building and being very destructive to a very important, probably, if not the most important historical structure that Fall River owns, certainly among the top 3 historical structures that Fall River owns. We've increased the stabilization fund. I know that you minimized my reference to 10 million, although I've heard the administration refer to it as approaching 10 million. But even if it's 7 million, which I believe it's over 7 million, but even if it's 7 million, that's a 1,400% increase over what this administration inherited. So the administration, to its credit, has increased that stabilization fund from approximately 500,000 to approximately 7 million. That's a 1,400% increase. To tap less than $400,000 is considerably, could conceivably be described as minimal of the 7 million that we have. It's not going to, I think, jeopardize our bond rating to any great extent, whether we have 7 million or 610 million. And we're increasing that. I mean, every day Fall River is getting revenue. You tell us all the time, Ms. Hardy, and as does Mrs. Viveras, as does Mayor Correa, that we are getting revenue left and right. You know, we've got the hundreds of thousands of dollars that's coming from cannabis. We've got a billboard that you want to create. Now I think the estimates there are probably reduced to about $60,000 annually if you put up one billboard. But, you know, there are other sources of revenue that Fall River is getting. And again, you know, I'll support this. And I also think it's a little bit, and I'll appreciate any comments the CPC wants to make on this, but, you know, I don't think you can have it both ways. You cannot unanimously say, use this money, and then privately say, don't use this money because it's our money. Use your own taxpayer money. Use your maintenance department money. Use your stabilization fund money. And make it very difficult for me as an elected official to say, well, why did you vote for it? Why did you vote unanimously? I understand it was a unanimous vote. I don't know if there was opposition. from the CPC. You can speak to that, whether there was opposition. But if the CPC votes unanimously and say, take this money and use it to fix the roof, and then privately they lambast you for taking the money and using it to fix the roof, it's hypocritical. And I don't appreciate it, and it's caused a great deal of friction between me and people that I've known all my life, and I don't like it. I don't think it's a proper way. I don't think it's a professional way to do things. If you don't believe the CPC funds should be used, then don't vote for it. You know, every job that we have as elected officials or appointed officials means that we are stewards of the city's tax money. And former councilors have often said, this would be a great job if you didn't have to vote. But you have to vote. And if you vote yes, take it, then don't, on the other hand, say don't take it, because there are other funds that should be utilized in its place. So I'm ready to vote for this tonight because frankly, I don't think it's the best way to go. But at this point, the mayor seems to have dug his heels in. The city administration seems to dig its heels in. And I don't think that this building ought to be sacrificed because of stubbornness on anybody's part. And there seems to be a lot of people that are being very stubborn rather than doing the right thing. And I don't want to be a party to being stubborn. So I'm ready to move any funding that will repair this as quickly as possible. With that,
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Joseph Camara.
Yeah, just one follow-up. Mr. Gallagher, you gave me this JFS John Shea Company Incorporated out of Avon, Mass. Description of work, repair all failing flashing. Did they do it?
Yeah, they did a lot of that flashing. They did all the flashing, all of the corners on the wood that's on the, where you've been on the roof.
Right,
Right,
so
so
it's-
when you see all of those, like.
So
little
why is it
crickets,
still leaking at the flashing?
They didn't do every single piece.
It says repair all failing flashing.
Everything that we said on that far side of the roof.
Well, their
that
job
was
is to go upstairs and see what's failing and repair the failing flashing. Once you repair the failing flashing on a roof job, it
Everything
will no
on
longer
that
fail.
side that we found that was failing on that side, we repaired. Anything
So
else?
is it
that-
leaking anymore?
Yeah, there's still leaks up there.
Then they didn't repair the flashing.
Everything that we had at the time that we saw, we repaired.
So all the flashing that they repaired has been fixed.
Everything that they've done,
So
everything
why don't
that
you have
we.
them repair
that-
the other failing flashing then? Why don't you just have them finish the job and repair the other? Cost you $7,000. It's still leaking. They're supposed to repair all failing flashing. So you're saying that they did that and it's fixed. Then is there some
I
other
think
failing
I
flashing that
think
you
with
didn't want them
that,
to repair?
This all failing flashing was the stuff that we had identified that was, at the particular time that was failing for what we thought they could do in the timeline for the amount of money of all of the
you
major
speak into the
areas that we,
microphone?
in all of the areas of the major areas that we thought were an
It's only
issue.
leaking next to the drains and the chimney. That's where the issues were. They should have repaired the flashing there.
There's a lot of that area that they did around the chimney, they did around the drain, they've done all of the patching that was coming down the valley.
One more quick question. On the second floor of that building, with no fault to the roof at all, there's paint that was damaged from one of the air conditioning.
Air conditioners, yes.
That's been like that for over 7 years. Hasn't been painted.
No, not 7 years, that only happened
6?
last summer.
The part,
The one that's right at the top of the stairs, right, you can see from the main desk in the corner was last summer when Josh was here.
Yeah, probably like 2 years, 2 summers.
Maybe it's just,
right, 2 summers. So how long do you think it's gonna take to fix that?
it's just setting up the staging to go up there and get that cleaned up.
Right, because that would look like most people walk in that area, and it seems like the roof's leaking there, and it's not. It's just something that probably should have been repaired a week after it happened.
Yeah, I've had my painter there now for quite some time. He did all the stairwells, he's done all of those things, and he's still ongoing painting.
He's
there.
gonna be, because the roof keeps leaking. Don't paint where the damage is.
Well, we
because-
sealed that up, we just kind of sealed it to try to just present it a little bit better, but yeah, he's still in there
Okay, look, I
painting.
want to fix the roof more than anybody, trust me.
Yeah.
I don't want, and how we pay for it, I'm getting to the point where I really don't care. It doesn't matter, as long as we fix the roof. I think you can do it a lot of different ways, I think you can, but you tend to think differently, and I'm not gonna keep batting this horse down. You got people that are saying the roof's been damaged for a long time. I feel sorry for Leanne and everybody that goes in there. I think the problem could be fixed at a less of a cost, but I'm not gonna fight that battle. If you want to spend $320,000 on this, and last time this roof was done, you said it was 30 years old?
33,
33.
1986.
And when did it start leaking? 6 or 7 years after the new roof was done?
No, months after the roof was
Months
done.
after the roof was done. You might see that again, but that's okay. If we're gonna spend $340,000 because it's CPA money and nobody seems to care and people just say, this is what we're gonna do it, and you don't have a construction person go up there and tell you exactly what the problem is. I think I know what the problem is. You think differently? We'll go your route. With that, I yield. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments? Would like to make a motion?
Is the CPC reconsidered its position, or are they 100% behind our using this money? $375,050.
We have not deliberated on it again. I mean, we deliberated on it when it was time to discuss and decide whether we wanted to use the funds. Knowing that the administration did not want to use FY19 budget funds or stabilization funds for this project, we believe that this building, historically as it is, the most historical building probably in our city, we're not contractors. We don't have the capability or capacity to go up on the roof and look at it all. We just wanted this building fixed, and so we were willing to spend our money on this. I mean, we only have $700,000 to $1 million in our account. I mean, so it's really not a lot compared to $7 to $8 million, but we thought it was that important that we would spend the money on this. I mean, we would hope that the administration would offer some part of the funds. I mean, it is true, CPA funds are tax funds. It is true, FY19 and all budget money comes from the taxpayers also. It would have been nice, I think, if some money came from CPC, some money came from the FY19 budget, but being that there was no money coming from that, we thought it was an important building, and we decided to fund the entire thing.
So this is the unanimous position of the CPA?
Yes.
The only thing that I would add is just to remind everybody that because it is a CPA project, this is a preservation project. It's not a simple roof replacement project. So we would be interested in reviewing the architect's drawings to make sure that some components of a restoration is incorporated. So in looking at the original reports, that existing roof right now is 2 inches of insulation with a 60 mil EPM membrane over. For the new energy code, a new roof will be a 5-inch insulation, 1/2-inch protection board, vapor barrier. That's going to result in flashing details being different. That's going to result in all the drains having to be extended up. There's a lot of other components that I don't see right now in the paperwork, but we'll get hopefully figured out with the architect. So I just want to put it out there that it's just not a simple roof replacement where you go to a roofing company, say, go in and do the job. We will be very interested to make sure that the end result is as close as to what the original roof was. No, we're not saying to put tile back, but to at least have a close enough look to what the original roof was.
What's your position with the CPC? What is your title? What is your position? Are you a board
Vice
member?
Chair?
Vice Chairman. Okay, and are you also in agreement that $375,050 should be used from CPC funds for this project?
I'm in agreement with that, but I also believe that the costs are going to be substantially more, where Jim mentioned that it would be preferable if there was money from CPA and money from this stabilization,
Off FY19
FY,
budget, however
right.
that is.
So I think once the architect does the drawings and the drawings go out to bid, you're going to see the accurate number. Because right now, I think, this is just my opinion, Chris, is that the cost estimate is based on a roofing company telling you how much they're going to charge to do that work, but not necessarily a system that an architect has designed.
So we're not,
Sit some-
go ahead, Mr. Gallagher.
The estimate was done by an architectural firm. It was done by the same company that estimated the Durfee High School, RDA, which you the city council received all of the estimates for all of our capital funds. So it was done by an architect. There are some things that Mr. Dias wants to see in some of his, or in some of the work, to be in the restoration, as he calls it. So, again, we will work with Mr. Dias, we will work with the architect into what we're going to do there as far as what it's going to meet for energy code, what it's going to meet for flashing, and all of those needs.
And in the event that the costs come in at amount higher than $375,
We're going to have to look, we would have to look to either come back to CPA for funding or city council for funding.
okay? Well, I hope that everyone is on the same page. I know, again, we're all a big fan of harmony and people getting together, and we hope that this is a time period when people are getting together. There has been historically, and it's not a secret, there has been some tension between the city administration and between the city administration and the Community Preservation Commission. Again, you're all part of the same group. City of Fall River, you're all public employees, whether you're paid or unpaid. You are, in fact, that's one of the interesting things about the ethics training, is that we are all accountable to the people of Fall River. So I don't want to hear any more, bickering publicly on, we can agree to disagree. We on the council agree at times, and we disagree at times. But ultimately, we're all in this together for the same purpose, is to do what's best for the taxpayers. So, I just caution both administration and the CPC to get on the same page, do a little kumbaya, get together, work things out, and make sure that we get the best job done at the best price. And if there's an additional funding needed in order to get this job done, then figure that out and figure out the resources where they need to come from in order for that to happen. And with that, I yield, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Counselor. Go ahead.
I just want to, I think I'm going to set the record straight as far as, I don't believe there was any bickering between CPC and the administration. I don't believe we bickered with Kathy Ann Viveris or the mayor or Ms. Sahadi for that matter. I'll tell you for sure, I was disappointed that the administration didn't offer up a penny towards this project from whether it's stabilization or FY19. That was my only vocal disappointment in the CPC meeting. There was no discourse between any people at all that I'm aware of. So not sure where that came from, but that's not true.
Well, I'm sorry you're opening up that can of worms. So, Mr. Dias, were you removed from a position by the mayor?
I was removed from the Historical Commission.
And was that because of a conflict between you and the administration?
Point of order, can we just focus on this?
Okay, so the fact of the matter is that one of your members, your vice chairman, was in such a way in conflict with the administration that it resulted in his being terminated from a particular position. I don't want that to happen. Mr. Dias is a valued member of our community. He's a valued member of our commission. He's appointed by the city council. I believe you are a city council appointee. Is that true?
In two different capacities,
Right.
yes.
So we have confidence in our appointee, and we want our appointee to be treated with respect, and we want the members of the commission to treat the administration with respect. Now, again, I hear from these people, and I hear sometimes not so nice things about you all. And I sometimes hear from you all some not so nice things about members of the commission. There's no room for that. We got to get this job done. We got to get it done right, and that means everybody's got to put aside their individual differences and whatever personality conflicts may exist, and we need to do it on behalf of the citizens of Fall River. So I'm surprised that I have to bring out to light the fact that there is disharmony, but that disharmony needs to be put to rest. And I yield.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Joseph Kamara.
Yeah, just real quick, I mean, Mr. Gallagher, Mr. Dias has a good point. You're gonna do this through CPA funds, that price is gonna escalate.
There's a possibility. I think for some of the things that he's asking for, I don't think there will be a significant cost. I think there could be some cost savings on what we're doing in there, but again, this was the professional estimator estimating, knowing what we were going to do, knowing what we were going to do, what was there. Knowing that insulation had to be added, roof drains would be because you have to meet the energy codes and stuff like that. But other than that, Mr. Dias is talking about some specialty flashings and things like that he'd like to see.
Not specialty, the size of the insulation is going to differ from 2 inches to 5 inches, so you're going to have to use different flashing altogether. It's not going to be the same size. It's going to be different.
He's looking for, in the flashing, he's looking for is like lead-coated copper or copper flashings versus EPDM flashing.
I heard him say that. You heard him say that?
Well, I just know what Mr. Dias is looking for, what he's looking for. He wanted to go back to maybe what the original roof was, thinking that it might have been slate or roof.
I didn't hear him say
or-
that either. I heard him say he's not looking for slate. Did you hear him say that today?
No, not today. In other conversations that we had with CPA, in other things, that he would like to see the roof back to its original, which I think is cost prohibitive for us.
Yeah, I understand it, but I just heard him say today he's not looking to go back to the original. He's not looking for slate. He's looking to do other things. We took energy code, 5-inch insulation to 2 inch.
Yep.
It's just
It's
going
the
to change the
flashings
flashing.
and things like that.
It's going
That's
to,
just-
it's going to have to change. It's not the
Right.
same size.
Right.
And then you get the skylights there, which might prohibit that. You might have to raise them because there's not that much room. I was up there. It's only 2 inch. There's not.
Yeah, on the big one. The other ones, there's more room, but on the
Yeah,
big
but
one.
the big
might
one's
be
the
an
main, the
issue.
biggest one's the biggest one. This might be the most expensive roof job in the, it can get out of control. I think we should probably figure out what the.
Well, we're gonna
total
have with the
price is gonna
architect, when
be
the architect designs
before-
and we sit down with the architect and that's what
So
the
prove the
architect's.
$300,000 now and then find out to the architect it's gonna cost what? How much?
For the architect.
500,000, 600,000, 200,000? What are we gonna do? Just approve the money now and then find out what it's gonna cost later?
No, but again, everything that we do is a best guess. They call them estimates. It's an estimate of what we're doing and trying to have the best idea and the best guess that we can say what it's going to cost. Not until you get into full design and you're into the design and what everything is going to be and then it actually goes out for bid. We know
Why
what
don't
the,
you figure out what you want to put on that roof? Whether you want copper flashing or not, whether you want the type of insulation or not to meet energy code, and why don't you present that to the architect, tell him this is the specs we want to go by, what's it going to cost us, give us a ballpark figure. Why don't we do it that way?
okay.
With that, I yield. Thank you.
Thank you.
And if you have to get Mr. Dias' opinion, anyone else's opinion, if you want anyone else's opinion, please get it, and then we'll know what people are looking to get done here. Because to just okay this at that price, and then this not be the price, and then we're already into the project, and there's no way out of the project, and do you have another $300,000 you can give the city from CPA funds? I don't think so. Is the city gonna come up with $300,000? They can't come up with $300,000 now. We're gonna come up with $300,000 2 months from now when we find out that's what the cost is gonna be, because it's energy-rated project now? What does that mean?
Yes, sir. I mean, that we'll definitely look at the price and we'll definitely
I
have
think
the
that's where we
architect.
should go. We should find out what the price is gonna cost to do this the right way. If we're gonna put a roof on, let's not do it, it's gonna leak months after it's up because something went wrong,
Yes, sir.
like the last one.
No problem.
Thank you. With that, I yield.
Thank you.
Well, we just got to come back again. So it sounds as if, unless Ms. Sahadi is disagreeing, this is not a true cost of this project. You're asking us, and it puts the council in a very precarious situation, because everyone wants to see this roof repaired.
Absolutely.
You know, but what we're being told is that we came up with a figure, and as I understand it, this figure is a figure to repair the roof, and now I'm hearing some pretty clear indications that this is not a true figure to repair the roof. This is just a guesstimate, is that what you used? the word?
Yes, it is, any
Guesstimate.
estimate, this was done by a professional estimator who estimated your high school.
Well, let me
The-
tell you something. When the council votes, we don't vote to guess something is going to be expended and it's going to do the job. We want the job done. We want the job done properly, and we don't want to see delay. Why is it that here we are, this was first submitted months ago, January 29th, 2019, and I think it was even before then when this was being talked about. And we're still, here we are now in April, still without a definitive price.
We have a definitive price. That was an estimator, as a professional estimator who estimated the job.
Yeah, and we have you saying right here, right now, that in all probability, this is not going to be enough to do the job.
I'm not saying that it's not enough to do the job, but if we wanted to get into some of the things that Mr. Dias would like, it could significantly cost us more money. If we do the job to what we've already determined, as Mr. Kamara said, is figure out the flashing that you want, figure out the roof, that's what we've done. That's what we did with the professional estimator. The professional estimator, hey, came out with the $345,000. I was asked to put out for another estimation of what it would cost to repair some of the damages that we've done on the inside, which was a $30,000 estimation. So we're at $375,000, and that's what we feel would take to do the roof. There are some things that Mr. Dias would like to see changed, and some other things that he may want that I think may possibly increase the cost of what he's asking for. But again, we can definitely have an architect go out there, and we can meet with Mr. Dias, and we can go out there and ask an architect in what we're looking at, based on the estimate we have right there, based on what he's looking for and what we're doing, what we're talking about code and upgrades and energy code, and see if that number is going to be a number that is going to be feasible to do the job. We feel that it is. My confidence in the professional estimator that estimated the job, I feel that it is. There are some things Mr. Dias is going to want to see changed, and it may change the cost.
Well, I here again, if you go to the CPC and say, give us the money to do this job, then you've got to expect that the CPC is going to want to have a say in the job that's going to be done. Now, if you don't want the CPC's input and you don't want Mr. Dias's input into the process, then find another source of funds. Go someplace where you're not going to have to jump through his hoops. You're expected to jump through CPC hoops
Yes.
if you want CPC money. Do you, Ms. Sahadi, do you want to do this project without the CPC hoops, or do you want to do this project with the CPC hoops?
Well, Counselor, at this particular point, certainly I'd like to do this project with the CPC hoops, if that's what we're going to call them. With regard to the additional, I didn't really necessarily hear Mr. Dias indicate that he wanted additional work done. Mr. Gallagher had a designer go out, an architect go out. They even put an escalating clause in here because the project wasn't going to be completed when these estimates were originally done. I don't know that we would be talking, and I'm not a roofer, so I've got a contractor here and another contractor on this side of me. They probably know better than I do, but, I mean, that's what this gentleman's business was. He did all of the projects. Similar to when we asked the city council for any other bond authorization or transfers, most of the time, we only have an estimate at that moment in time. That's why there are some projects that we end up having to go back to city council for additional funding, and there are other projects that have residual left over in the bond proceeds because the project came in at a lesser amount. We have to start somewhere. So from my point of view, when Mrs. Viveris and Mr. Gallagher went to the CPC for purposes of the request for this emergency money, they were using a third party's estimate as to what the cost of that roof was going to be. So, I mean, I'm looking at it saying that the 345 is an estimate, but it's a legitimate estimate for the roof. Now, if there are obviously different types of roofs and energy efficiencies and all of that, which is beyond the scope of my job, I would hope that this particular Raymond Design Associates took all of that into consideration when they put together this estimate, as they are the experts in the field, so.
And they put together this estimate on behalf of the CPC? Or was this on behalf of the city of Fall River?
On behalf of the city council asked, if you remember, for us to go out to get an estimator and have all of the projects on the community compact estimated, because I don't know if you remember this, but if you go back to your community compact, the original estimate by the University of Massachusetts was $80,000 for this roof. So the cost of this roof has changed significantly over the last couple of years while we've been talking about the roof.
You could still probably do it for 80.
Okay, I yield.
Thank you, Counselor. Any further comments?
I'm good.
Entertain a motion.
Make a motion, we fix the roof.
With CPC funds or without them?
It's the million-dollar question.
I think this is a shame upon the city. I have to tell you that since the beginning of January, this has gone back and forth and back and forth. Meanwhile, the thing is leaking, the place is in shambles. I can't believe you.
Mr. Hardy, if the cost comes in over the $375.50, can we they be able to come to the city to pay for the rest of the roof?
We will figure out a way to fund the remaining project.
Won't have a choice.
We don't have a choice, right? So similar to any other project, and we have had projects over time that have come in higher than the estimate or the authorization that the council has given us to spend on a project. I mean, I know this is a big project, but Morton School, I mean, I believe there were 2 additional appropriations for the Morton School when it was being built because the original estimates were significantly lower than the cost of the school. We've had other projects, as you know, because we've had those turnbacks that we've been utilizing recently, where we funded more than the project actually cost. I mean, we have to give you, when we come to the council, and when the city went to the CPC, we have to go with the best estimate at the time, based on whatever professional we use for that estimate. It's like my Durfee High School project right now. I don't want that to go over either.
Sure.
Well, I'll move to forward the communication from the mayor and the adoption of the order as presented on January 29th, 2019.
So motion to forward to the council with a recommendation
Yeah, I'll support it for now.
for
For approval.
approval. Yep.
Sure. And if someone comes up with a different source of funding by then, or,
My motion was to accept the communication and approve the appropriation order
as it was presented on January 19th.
as presented to us on January 29th, 2019.
That's what I understood. I second that motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 4 is communication, trustees of the Fall River Public Library Board, emergency funds for roof repair.
Move to accept, place on file.
Motion to accept and place on file.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Move adoption of the minutes,
Second.
January 30th.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Good job.